Because it's not about convincing the people in this room that transparency builds trust with stakeholders. It's actually about convincing our other internal stakeholders within our various companies, within governments, within the investor community, that transparency is a value creator. It creates value. It's not just about doing the right thing. It's about doing the smart thing that ensures business resilience and creates value. So, and why is that? Again, in keeping with this, in this line of thought of stating the obvious, we are dealing with some pretty significant sustainability challenges right now. And what we're seeing an ever-increasing body of academic literature and studies that actually connect these very specific sustainability challenges to specific chemistries. And if you look at does this thing have a pointer? I think it does, right? Oh, yeah. So if you look at some of these chemistries that are the subject of these academic and socioeconomic studies, we got phthalate plasticizers. We got other plasticizers in here. We have brominated flame retardants in this list. We all know about these classes of chemicals, right? But the one thing that we need to emphasize here is that they are represented in thousands and thousands of different consumer goods. Right, so if we want to really get a handle on, where these chemicals are manifesting themselves, what are the, exposure vectors associated with their use and end of life, we need to have a certain level of transparency, right? How we act and how effective we are ultimately depends on that. Chemical transparency, and again, think about you talking to your C-suite or to your CFO or to your in-house counsel, right, about, why are we investing all this money? Why are we pushing this, chemical transparency agenda as part of our program, right? It's because chemical transparency does demonstrate a commitment to continuous improvement, right? And that commitment to continuous improvement will ultimately manifest itself as brand loyalty, as shareholder value, and enables mitigation of contingent risk. This is all connected back to chemical transparency. There are a number of studies that really flush this out. I'm going to highlight a few of them, so you can look these up and read them in detail and convince yourselves of that if you need to. But there's an interesting Comport report that came out in 2025, and a couple of the key findings of that report. So 94% of consumers are more loyal to brands offering full chemical transparency. 56% say that transparency will make them loyal for life. And 62% of online shoppers say that they would refuse to buy from brands with incorrect product data. Again, points to hammer home, transparency equals value. So, if you're having difficulty convincing your customers or your internal decision makers about investments that need to be made around the enhancement of transparency, this is the connections that I find to be the most compelling with internal decision makers. So, and another reason I bring this up is because, one of the things that I particularly have a problem with is the way that safer and more sustainable chemistry, the way emerging technologies have their potential ROI calculated. I mean, in my mind, it's completely wrong. I mean, if you were comparing, an ROI calculation for an existing commodity chemical, whether, let's say you're considering capacity expansion, I mean, that is a very pragmatic black and white calculation, right? You factor in your raw material costs, your conversion costs, your sales and marketing costs, and you compare that with what percentage of the market you think you can address and how much you're going to sell it for, roughly, right? That's a crude ROI calculation. If you try to do the same thing with an emerging chemical that's safer and more sustainable, you're never going to compete. You don't even have the economies of scale to compete at the beginning, right? So you need to start considering other factors. You need to start considering factors like risk, factors like brand equity, impacts of brand equity and trust, contingent risks in the form of litigation. These are some of the things that need to start being factored in. So I didn't need to really argue that long with this crowd, but chemical transparency does build trust with stakeholders. But importantly, I think the messages to emphasize within the broader community, especially the part of the community that actually controls the purse strings for your budgets, is that this ultimately enhances brand loyalty. It ultimately protects and enhances shareholder value, and it really gives you a new handle on risk mitigation. Things that modulate everything from the size of your contingency funds to how much you have to service those contingency funds to even your insurance premiums. There's real value there, well beyond that which would be revealed in a traditional ROI calculation. So I'll end it there, and I'll end it with one of my favorite quotes from from Charles Kettering. He used to be the head of research for GM. A problem well stated is a problem half solved. I don't think there's a more appropriate example or situation in which to use this quote than when you're talking about chemical transparency. We've got big problems to solve. We have big opportunities to capitalize upon. And the only way we're going to be able to do so is if we have the necessary level of chemical transparency.